be here with you all. I know I usually kind of just kick off the trainings and then pass you off to a trainer, but excited to get to facilitate it and be with you for a couple hours today. So like I said, we were expecting kind of a larger class, so people might kind of pop in and out, but this might be our core group. Just some practicals for throughout the training. We're going to be talking about leading effective team meetings, and with that, we just we want as much participation as possible. So if you're able to keep yourself unmuted if you're in a quiet space, or if you're in a loud space, obviously mute. But if you have your camera, turn it on. Would love to see your face. For those of you that are in the certificate, this is our 4th module. So you've gone through introduction to teams, leading with style differences, and introduction to team communication. And so today we're talking about running effective team meetings, which if any of you, and most of you are, team managers or team leaders in some capacity, is a really necessary process, and something that is both a science and an art, in the sense that there's some practical things you can do, but it's challenging, and to get people involved and to be successful with your meetings is a major skill set for any manager and any leader. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my screen. Give me 1 second here, and we will jump in for today's training. All right. Can everybody see that okay? Perfect. And just by thumbs up, if you wouldn't mind, does everyone have the student guide in front of them? That's going to be really important to have throughout can I get a just thumbs up, because you will need that throughout the whole session today. Everyone, thumbs up, have it? Good, okay. If you don't have it, give me a thumbs down and I can give it to you right now before we kick off, because it's going to be important for you to have. So, okay, cool. Well, awesome. Like I said, you're running effective team meetings, meeting for leaders. I'm going to be facilitating today's session. A little bit about me. I know I just kind of jump in and introduce our trainers normally, but my name is Kevin Pappas. I've met many of you, but I'm the training manager at 10C. Prior to 10C, I was with the YMCA for 3 years, which is a national organization, and ran their youth, teen, and family programs for 3 or 4 years there, and then moved down to Orange County and joined the 10C team about 2 years ago. I was telling Juan, I just finished up a master's degree in organizational development and training. So training and staff development, professional development is very much my passion and my interest. And, throughout my career, there's been a lot of meetings I've been a part of that have been excellent. And there's been a lot of meetings that have been horrible. And I really believe that if we can hone this skill today, it's going to make all of us on this call, more effective managers, more effective leaders for the future. So a little bit overview of what we're going to be going through today. I'll walk us through the agenda. We'll do some introductions. I know some of you know each other. Some of you are just taking this as an individual course. And then we'll talk about just an overview of, what team meetings look like, different styles of team meetings, the process of going through them. And then we're going to give you a really helpful framework, which is found in that student guide. And that's why I want you to be able to have access to it, whether on a PDF or if you have a printed copy. And we're going to take you through the meeting process of what you do before the meeting, what you do during the meeting, and then what you do after the meeting. So it's a pretty simple 3-step process to prep, what you do during, and then after. And then we'll have some closing points and Q&A. So most of the sessions, if you're a part of the certificate, have been about 3 hours. Today's module is a little shorter. It'll probably be about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So for those of you that have blocked off till 12 on your calendar, you're probably a little excited. I'll give you that at the front end, that you'll probably get a little more time. And we'll do a 10-minute break about an hour in. So, you'll have time to recharge, go to the bathroom, all those things. Just want to give you a heads up on that. So with that, let's just do kind of a round robin of introductions. We're pretty small today. I was thinking it was gonna be more 20, 25 people, but I think a lot of folks can't make it today. So I wanted to share, I know some of your organizations, but your organization, your role and your title, and then take a second, think about one of the best team meetings you've ever attended. That could be at your current organization, previous organization, and just share with us for a quick 30 seconds. Why was that meeting so effective? What was different about it? What did you enjoy about it? And then lastly, what do you hope to get out of today's session? So I'll give you a second to think about that. And then we'll just go around in a quick circle and introduce ourselves. So I actually have on my screen Tanner, if you wouldn't mind, if you want to kick us off, be awesome.
All right, yeah, my name's Tanner Lapano. I'm the ERA manager at South County Outreach, and that acronym's for Emergency Rental Assistance. One of the best meetings that I've been a part of is here with SCO. It was one of our quarterly meetings, and so it was just nice because it was very structured, and we went over what we had done the past quarter and what our goals are moving forward. I just liked how structured it was and just how everything was communicated. And then with this course, I just want to learn how to do that in a smaller scale with a smaller group of team.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tanner. And Tanner, just out of curiosity, how big is the team that you're currently leading?
There's 2 people that me, so 3 total.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks. Okay, and then next on my screen, I have Carolina. Or Carolina?
The second one.
Okay.
It's okay. 50-50. Hi, my name is Carolina Gutierrez Rica. I'm the Director of Mental Services at the Council on Aging in Southern California. I've been in that position for about 15 years. And let's see, my team is about 22 people right now, not counting volunteers or so, because that is over 100, but the teams that I usually meet with on a regular basis, about 22 people. And I'm going to say that some of the most productive meetings that we have are our strategic planning meetings with either with my team or when we have it with the leadership team meeting. I feel that they are very structured and very productive at the end of the day, which, these days efficiency and be able to get things done and move forward is kind of pretty good.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Carolina. Yeah, keywords we'll hear all day today: efficient, timely, you get objectives done, right? Key things we're going to be talking about. All right, next I have Nancy Palmer from OC Rescue.
Hi guys, my name is Nancy. I work at the OC Rescue Mission. I am the volunteer engagement coordinator. So my team that I'm on is about 3 people within the whole volunteer department. We actually have pretty effective meetings. I meet with my boss at least once a week, and we meet for about 30 minutes just going over what we're doing for the week, what we can do with volunteers, if there's any volunteers that needed talking to, things like that. So what I would like to get out of this is just how to make those even more efficient. They are very efficient, but how to make them even more efficient than they already are to get things sort of dialed in, especially in a department that's very large. We manage a lot of people, even though that there's like 3 of us all together. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Nancy. And today, just to say, a lot of the tools that we're going to walk away with, whether you're managing a team directly or you want to bring into your one-on-one with your supervisor, there's a lot of things in here that you can bring into those experiences and takeaways today. You can share with your supervisor, hey, I learned this, maybe a more effective way we can do our meeting, or come in with a game plan and some objectives. So there's multiple formats and multiple types of meetings, whether it's with your supervisor, your direct team, or volunteers. A lot of today's session is going to apply to all that. Okay, perfect. Next, I have Mia.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Mia Lake. I am the site manager for Illumination Foundation. Currently, right now, we have 25 of us on the team. The best meeting I probably had was the medical department meeting. It was to do with how to communicate better with our teammates. We had, like images on the screen, and we had to break up into smaller groups and, different people's like perspective of what the image was, or, we had an image of like this shoe. If it was like a green or gray, or did people see like a white pink shoe, and we discussed it as a team, and it was just how to better communicate and overall learn from how people saw things differently. Joining this meeting today, I want to learn how to be effective in, just like Tana said, in a smaller group setting, and lead one efficiently as well by myself.
That's great. Thanks so much for sharing, Mia. That's awesome. We will cover most of that, probably all of that today. So that's great. Sarah, I can't see you, but I think you're here. Sarah Monedas.
Yes, hi, good morning. I don't have a camera, so I do apologize for that. My name is Sarah Manares. I am from SUCASA, Ending Domestic Violence. I am the program supervisor for the transitional shelter. One of the effective meetings that I've had, specifically with this organization, was a review update of how the program was going, and it was very transparent, and everyone had the opportunity to kind of speak their mind and where they thought needed improvements, which was really well. Very productive meeting. One thing that I want to learn is having a meeting that is time efficient. A lot of my meetings tend to go long, specifically not meeting kind of like the time frame that we have for each person to speak. Usually one speaks more than others, which takes away the time for others to share their input. So that's what I'm hoping to learn today.
That's awesome. So yeah, we'll talk a lot about timeliness, coming in with the schedule, managing over talkers. How do you do that to keep meetings on track? So great. All right, next on my screen, Juan Diego.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Juan Diego Norena. I'm the education manager in MAMS Orange County. So I have around 20 years working here. So MAMS is a non-profit organization. So we work with pregnant women and families. And I think in the last meetings, the education meeting, the department meeting, it was great because we in the icebreaker we used a mindful activity. So it was amazing. It's the first 10 minutes to begin the education meeting, because after that the people feel very well during the hour and a half. So I think that my big issue is prepare the agenda. So okay, what points I need to include, what not. And how to design the timing for each topic. I think is my big issue about that.
That's great. And you'll see in the student handout that you have, the back pages, I think it's 18, 19, and 20. We're going to be referencing that a lot today. Is a 3-step template process for preparing, doing, and then evaluating the meeting. So we're going to go through all.
Yeah, okay, I forgot. I have only five educators in my.
They report. Okay,
yeah,
so your team meetings, Juan, are usually with 5 other people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good to know.
Sure.
Great. Okay, next I have Ziomara. Did I pronounce it correctly? Ziomara?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Xiomara Orozco, and I am the Preventive Program Supervisor at Stand Up for Kids. And one of the most effective meetings I've been at was actually last week for our staff meeting, just because we actually followed our agenda. We followed the right time that everyone had. So that was really good. And something that I'm hoping to learn is how to, again, just like everyone, how to make a meeting more effective and possibly maybe reduce meetings. For example, this past semester, we took on about 40 interns, and there were only 2 supervisors. So wow. We had to do 3 separate meetings for all of the interns. So just hoping to learn how to make big meetings like that more effective.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Dennis, I see you just jumped on. We're going through just, name, organization, and then also best team meeting you've ever attended, and a little bit about that, 30 seconds on why. And then what do you expect to get from today's session?
Awesome. I'm Dennis Williams. I'm with South County Outreach in Irvine. The best team meetings. I think some of the best ones are ones that are less meeting and more fun, to be quite honest. So I think sometimes it's good to not always have team meetings that are so business focused and so agenda focused, and to change it up every once in a while and take your staff out to lunch, or go do a fun activity, or even do something for the whole day. We've done that at places I've worked where we've instead of a staff meeting or something like that, we take the whole staff out of the office for a day and do, a team building activity, do something fun, kind of to break up the monotony and have another meeting. So those are my favorite kind of staff meetings. And then what was the other question?
What do you hope to get out of today's session?
Oh yeah, awesome. So for when you do have team meetings and staff meetings, looking to see, kind of what are best practices in terms of structure, in terms of, how long should a meeting be, how short should it be, how often should it occur, how you should structure your agenda, how do you kind of keep them productive, but and keep people engaged. I think that's important too.
Awesome. And today's just quick overview. Today's session is going to provide kind of a basic framework, but I will say at the front, there's some pieces of it that might just seem kind of like, duh, yeah, obviously you do that. But I want to encourage all of you to really press into thinking about it like in a real scenario. We're going to give you time to think of an actual upcoming meeting that you have and plan that out, the agenda, the purpose of the meeting, all those things. And it might sound, parts of it might sound, well, yeah, obviously you do that, but getting in a rhythm of actually practicing this process is how you have that consistency to do this across all your meetings. And so if we're going through a part of it, I just want to say at the front and you go, yeah, but what about this? Like I know Dennis just said, I want to know how long a meeting should be, for the type of meeting, how long should it be, who should be involved? Let's talk about that. And so if you have questions that come up through a particular meeting you're planning on hosting, bring that up to the group and we'll have a conversation around what structure and timing might look like, because obviously it's going to depend on the objectives and the goals of all of your meetings. So just wanted to say that at the front end. If you have questions, we can definitely press in because we're a smaller group and have a little more time today. Next, I have Thomas House student. I'm not sure name there. Can you hear us, Thomas House student?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't find a computer with a camera and a speaker, but it's Martha Figueroa. I'm the administrator at Thomas House.
Awesome. And Martha, can you share a little bit about the best meeting you've ever attended and what you hope to get today?
Well, I do run some of our fun team building meetings, try to make them a little shorter than usual, but with a lot of information and interaction. So those are my favorite meetings. What do I want to gain here is, knowledge and information.
Awesome. Anything specific, like knowledge and information about meetings, I imagine, but anything specific you're hoping to improve in future meetings?
Time, for example, sometimes I tend to talk too fast. If maybe slow down, and time management.
Time management. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Martha. And then I see an iPhone. I don't want to mispronounce your name. I apologize if I do. Latoy or Latoy?
It's Latoy.
Latoy, okay.
Yeah. My name is Latoy Pledger. I am site supervisor at Illumination Foundation in Lincoln Park. I'm going to log into my computer. I just pulled into the office. I do want to tell you that. So then I'll be able to log in, have the camera on. My favorite meeting, I think currently some of my favorites are, I meet bi-weekly with HR, and there's a few folks from HR, and it helps to kind of throw things at them when it comes to our staff, and just maybe things that I could do better when it comes to the staff, making sure that I am doing things right, even though I've been doing this for a while, but not here at Illumination Foundation. So making sure that I'm doing things that are good for our staff. But and what I would like to get out of this meeting, I think a lot of what everyone else has said, but another thing is when we have our site meetings once a week, and a lot of times it seems like I'm the only one that talks. So when I try to give them opportunity, or always give an opportunity, they don't have anything to say, and then everyone wants to come to me by themselves. Like, okay, now I have something to say. It's just you and I. And it was like, that could have been openly said. And then it sounds like when I do say it, it's all just coming from me, but might have been something someone else has said. So just encouraging the team to interact with each other, especially during meetings, because then when they don't, it always comes off like they're being combative, or just being able to have them interact more in the meeting.
That's a great point, and how do we create space for that in our team meetings so that people feel comfortable, people feel safe to share? Because it can be hard as the manager. That happens a lot, right? Where people leave the meeting and then they come to you and they go, hey, I really wanted to talk to you, Tanner, about X, Y, or Z. And then Tanner, why didn't you bring that up in the group? And so that's something we'll try and tackle today, is how do we create safety in the group? How do you, as the leader, when you're facilitating, have opportunities for people to share and jump in, and finding the balance between letting people share and jump in and also keeping your meeting on time and on schedule, right? Because that can be a tension of, you want to give people a place to share, but you also don't want to get off track and not achieve your objectives. So great. Well, thank you all for sharing. I really appreciate that. I just wanted to get a sense of where you're at, what you're looking to get out today. We obviously have the content we're going to work through, but we can kind of adapt it a little bit specifically to some of your needs and your goals. So I'm going to pull my screen up again. So learning objectives for today, in addition to everything we just covered, we're going to talk about identifying the characteristics of effective meetings. What are they? What does it look like to have an effective meeting? As well as tips for meeting facilitation, as many of you are team leaders and will likely be leading your trainings or leading your team meetings. Learn the 3-step meeting process for leading effective team meetings. So like I said, the planning, the during, and then the evaluation. We're going to walk you through those 3 steps of how to do that. And then develop your skills as a manager to keep meetings on task and on time. Something that I just heard from many of you can often be challenging. It's just hard for us. We get talking about different things, and we're going to talk about some meeting styles that happen frequently, but work doesn't actually get done, or we don't achieve our objectives. And how do we kind of remedy that? So I just want to start by saying, meetings they're important, right? There's a reason we meet, but there's also there's other formats to achieve work. And I'm sure many of you have experienced, there's been oftentimes where you go to a meeting and then you leave and you go, that could have all been done by email, right? Or that could have all been a quick phone call. We didn't need to bring the whole team together for an hour, spend the 10 minutes coordinating on our calendar, who is available, send the invite on the Zoom link now, right? Because we're not meeting in person. There's all these things we need to think about. And a huge piece we're going to consider today is time management, both for your team and then also for yourself. And so as we're going through the process today, hopefully some of the planning will help you consider, do we actually need to have a meeting, right? And if yes, here's the place and the way that we do it. But if no, great, what is the other way that we want to go about doing that? So unfortunately, team meetings can be run poorly. They can cause more damage than good at times when they're not planned, managed, or evaluated. So I like this slide, and this is in your workbook. We can't live with them, but we also can't live without them. So what can we accomplish today to make our meetings most effective? So I would love it if someone wouldn't mind volunteering. I'm going to have you read this out loud to the group. Anyone interested in reading this for us really quick?
I can read it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Tanner. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Everyone hates a bad meeting, and yet teams can't avoid meetings. It is one of the primary processes for working together. So how can your team be one of those rare enlightened groups that can turn the dreaded meeting into a powerful opportunity for getting real work done? It really isn't that hard. All it requires is paying attention to a few issues before the meeting occurs, and then paying attention to a few things that are going on during the meeting. This module of Go Team will lead you through a process for planning and then managing your meeting by completing a simple tool that is located in the back of this book. During the module, you will think about an actual meeting that you need to have in the future. If you haven't already identified the meeting that you will plan, pause for a moment and now do so.
Awesome. So, it's so much more helpful to learn things, right, when you think about things in your real work context. So you'll have the next few minutes to think about it, but start thinking, because we're gonna jump in a few seconds around actually planning one of your real meetings. So think about whether it's a reoccurring meeting you have with your staff team, or a reoccurring meeting you have with your manager or with your volunteers, whoever it is. Get that meeting in your head, lock it in, think about what it kind of looks like, how it's gone, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well. And we're going to actually walk through the planning process today together as a group with a real meeting. So go ahead and take a second to think about that. And as you do, I want to just do a quick poll to get a sense of why do we dislike meetings, if at all. So I'm going to pull this up and you're actually going to be able to vote on your screen. So give me 1 second here. So go ahead. This poll is going to pop up and answer this question. Why do you think we dislike meetings as people? Okay, almost everyone's coming in. A few more. Okay, perfect. So check this out. I'll share this with you. I'm not going to hide these results for myself. So one of you said they interrupt our work. 3 of you, they can be unproductive. We've all experienced that. The meeting of why did we do this? We just kind of talked about random things. We didn't get any work done. They last too long. How many of you have been a part of a meeting that just went on forever? That if it had clear objectives and a clear outline, you could have been done really quickly. Yeah. And then most of you, 50% of you said all of the above. So you're all right. You know, the first 3 are pieces that, you know, why we dislike meetings, but it really is all of those, right? Those are some of the key reasons why we dislike meetings. And so today we're going to, you know, hopefully paint a better case for why meetings are necessary and hopefully help us, you know, plan them a little better so that we can, you know, operate and use them to in a tool that they're supposed to be used. So, okay. All right, so moving along, some interesting facts about meetings, and this might surprise you. There's some recent data around meetings that take place, and this is across all businesses, all sectors in the United States. 11 million meetings each day. Let that sink in a little bit. 11 million meetings. 55 million each week. Makes sense, right? 11 times 5. And then well over 1 billion meetings in a year. And this isn't just like, hey, Juan went to meet his buddy at Starbucks and had a coffee, right? This is workplace data. 1 billion meetings a year. So clearly this is something we do more than almost anything else we do in the workplace, right? We do this 1 billion times per year. And so if we're doing these meetings each week, I imagine some of you probably have anywhere between 5 to 7 meetings. I know with COVID, we schedule them back to back to back to back to back. We get off calls and then we go, how am I supposed to do any of the real work that was just talked about in those meetings, right? So we are meeting frequently and we need to figure out how to do these more effectively. People report that 50% of the time in meetings is wasted. You know, what's actually interesting is about 50% of you said that in our quick little poll. So, you know, 50% of us believe that time in meetings is wasted and we can do it more effectively. And roughly 33% of participants consider meetings to be unproductive. Either it could have been done in a different format over email, could have been done a quick conversation, or we got off track and we didn't actually accomplish what we were intended to accomplish. So real quick, I just want to hear from anyone. Do any of those surprise you? Does that sound right? Any initial thoughts? Just, I know that's some kind of interesting data right there for you. Any thoughts on that? Well, if nothing else, hopefully, you know, shows you we are meeting frequently and the need, you know, in workplaces, including in nonprofits, to be more effective with our meetings. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about meeting pet peeves. So if you have the student guide in front of you, turn to page 6. So this is in page 6 of the student guide. And as you'll see, there's 5 pet peeves listed here. I want to hear a few of your others, but there's the mystery meeting, the never-ending cycle, the slipknot meeting, the folly of physical presence, and the monologue. So if someone wouldn't mind, I'm actually just going to call on people. Let's see here. Mia, do you have that in front of you? Would you be able to read those 5 types of meetings to us?
Yes. The 5 types of meeting. What page is it?
This is on page 6 of the student workbook. Do you see it? I'm seeing some confused faces. Is it not on page 6?
It's on page 4.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Mine might be slightly off in the PDF. So yeah, page 4. Please correct me if they're off, because I think mine might be 1 or 2 pages longer. So yeah, sorry about that.
All right. Meeting pet peeves. People have strong and often negative feelings about meetings. We're going to lay it all out on the table right here and now. Work individually. Pick your top 2 meeting pet peeves from the list below. Am I reading one?
Does yours have the description of each of those meetings? If it doesn't, I can go ahead and it does. Okay. So just go ahead and read, what the mystery meeting is, the definition, the never-ending cycle definition. Yeah.
Okay, so the mystery meeting, what's the purpose of this meeting? Walking in, no one knows. By the end, you still don't know. The never-ending cycle. In the meeting, a lot of people say a lot of words, but at the end, there is no conclusion or agreement. The Slipknot, great meeting. What are the next steps? At the time, it seemed like everyone was clear, but later you discover everybody left with different expectations. Nothing gets done. The folly of physical presence. Sure, you got this done in the meeting, but they were all simple tasks that could have been accomplished more efficiently by trading a few emails. Sometimes togetherness is overrated. The monologue. One or two people did all of the taking and all of the work. Talking and all of the work, sorry. So what were all those other people sitting there for?
Awesome. Thank you, Mia. Appreciate you reading those. So I want you to think broadly about all the meetings you've been a part of, right? So this isn't just, in your current workplace, all the meetings that you've been a part of in your different careers. And go ahead and put in the chat, these 5, what are your top 2? What do you most experience most frequently as your pet peeves in meetings? And just go ahead and throw those your top 2 in the chat once you have them. Tanner says the never-ending cycle and the Slipknot. Okay. The mystery meeting and the never-ending cycle. Okay. The folly of physical presence. I think that the folly of physical presence is so real. We think, oh, we're going to meet in person. That must mean we're going to get work done. And then we finish the meeting and we actually didn't really do anything. The never-ending cycle. Yep. Slipknot. Awesome. So I see some threads. I mean, it seems like the never-ending cycle, the Slipknot, and the folly of physical presence. Just because it wasn't covered, I'm curious, does anyone, the monologue, right? A couple people talk. Has anyone been a part of meetings where it seems like it was just 1 or 2 people meeting and they could have just met, but somehow you got brought into the meeting and you didn't probably really need to be there? I'm sure that, yeah, we've all kind of experienced that, right? So, these are just 5 kind of paradigms to think about. This doesn't encompass all of our pet peeves. So I'd love to hear from 1 or 2 of you, what's not covered here? What else has happened in your meetings that are frustrating? You're sitting there going, this could be done differently, or the leader doesn't see this is happening. What are some other pet peeves that come up for you when you're a part of meetings or when you're leading meetings? And I'd love to hear from 1 or 2 of you. You can just go ahead and unmute yourself if you want to share.
I'll go. I will say that another one for me is the meetings that have the same purpose and keep happening recurrently. You talk about the same thing over and over and over. And there's a point that is like, okay, we talk about this 6 months and can we, we beat the horse. Can we just move on and focus on something else? Because it seems very unproductive at the end of the day. Even if there's little resolutions at the end of each of the meetings, there's so much time that should be dedicated to a particular topic or project, and can be handled in an efficient way. Not to say that there's some items like, let's say, returning, back to the office now with the pandemic and why not, that would require more time, but I'm talking about that probably topics that don't require 6, 7, 8 meetings, an ongoing type of conversation.
That's such a good point, right? We, especially in this virtual world, will calendar, oh, we meet every Tuesday to talk about this for the next month. And you get to the kind of the third or fourth meeting and you go, we could have totally knocked this out in the first meeting. Why are we, and we just fill our calendars with these reoccurring meetings that maybe don't need to happen. Or maybe a few email exchanges could get us up to speed with where everyone's at. But instead we kind of waste a whole hour on Zoom, resharing, rehashing, but not actually making, decisions from what's covered. So thanks, Charlene. That's great. One more other person. What else is missing on this list that you've maybe experienced that are a little bit frustrating in some meetings you've been in? Anybody else?
I can go again.
Go for it. Yeah, if you
I
have
run a lot of
awesome.
meetings.
Yeah.
So this happens more often, more than with my team or so, with sometimes with community meetings, that I share outside of the office or so. But I think that is very disruptive, having people that maybe have a particular agenda and that are hard to redirect. I am a very direct person, so I can redirect, but sometimes it's very challenging to try to accomplish all the items in your agenda if there's one or a couple of people that keep taking the conversation constantly to a completely different scenario that is not the focus. So that's definitely a little bit annoying.
Yeah, definitely. Some people can kind of dominate and take us off track, and can be challenging because we want to be respectful of our employees and of other people, but at the same time we have objectives and goals for each of our meetings. So we'll talk about that and how to kind of manage those folks in different meetings. So awesome, great points, and thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. So we're going to brainstorm just as a group, what makes an effective meeting. We obviously are going to go through the content today of what Go Team covers as keys for effective meetings, but I want to just kind of have you have folks use the whiteboard feature, just a show of hands, where you can annotate on a slide. Has anyone seen this before? So what I want you to do is, do you see on the top of your screen, you should see like a toolbar, and there should be an annotate option. It's like a little arrow. Give me a thumbs up if you see that, like when you go into your Zoom toolbar. Should be okay, you see it. So Tanner sees it. So you're going to click that, and then you're just going to go ahead and click text, and then you can click on the slide, like literally on my screen, and what makes an effective meeting. And I want you each to write 1 or 2 things that you would consider makes an effective meeting. So perhaps it's planning and identifying roles. And then do you all see that now on the slide? So go ahead, give me a thumbs up. I see Tanner sees it. A couple of you have cameras off. I can't tell, but are you able to annotate? Okay, awesome. Cool. So go ahead and write a couple things on there. I'd love to see your thoughts. If we were in person, I'd have a big flip chart and we'd write, a bunch of options for what makes an effective meeting. But obviously we're going to learn more about that today, but off the top of your head, what agenda and next steps? Great. What are some keys to effective meetings from your experience? Clear agenda of what needs to get done, right? If we don't know what we're intending to set out to do, we're probably going to go a bunch of different places. Encourage team participation, right? How hard is that, especially on Zoom, where we're leading these team meetings or our staff meetings? You present, hey, we're going to roll out this new program or policy. What does everyone think? You get one of these, right? You get like a thumbs up. No one shares. How do you engage and encourage your team to participate? It's definitely a challenge, especially over Zoom. Agenda and communication, goals and objectives. And the goals and objectives actually are the solution to staying on track and not going off topic. Clear agenda, feedback, clear expectations. That's actually a great one. Whoever wrote clear expectations really helps with, determining, hey, if you can manage expectations from the beginning before the meeting starts, it's very helpful, because then people don't come in going, oh, I wanted to cover X, Y, or Z. They know, hey, this meeting is set to do this. and it helps keep people on track. So, clear expectations, goals, and objectives for the meetings. Great. Clear purpose and goals. Great. We're going to talk a lot about purpose today. See a few other people typing on here. Hold on one sec. Clear agenda. We see that. That's in bold. That's important. So thanks for writing clear agenda. Awesome. Well, this is just really helpful. I wanted to just get a sense of what you folks all see as, necessary. So let me clear that. Thanks for adding those slides. Okay. Do you all have your meeting in mind? Give me a thumbs up if you have the meeting that you want to work through today. You have a reoccurring meeting on whether it's your staff with a team leader. So think about that meeting. We're going to be planning and going through a portion of the exercise today. And so go ahead and turn, again, please correct me if I'm wrong. It's on page 20 for me, but it's the come to our meeting in quotes. It's at the very end of your student guide. It might be page like 18 in your workbook, but it's page 20 in mine. Someone wouldn't mind just helping me out. I think it's on page 20.
For us, it's page 18.
18, okay. So it sounds like everything's 2 pages behind what I say, so I'll just subtract 2. So go ahead and turn to page 18. And you're gonna see, come to our meeting. And we're actually gonna be writing on this today. So if you don't have it and you just have it on, your PDF on your computer, go ahead and pull out a sheet of paper or, a window with some notes on your computer, because we're gonna ask you to kind of write some stuff down. So you'll see on there, you have, come to meeting, when is the meeting, where's the meeting, to be facilitated by, time managed by, and participants. So this is the first step we're gonna walk through in planning any team meeting. So like I said, there's 3 steps to this meeting process in this paradigm we're gonna walk through. The reason most meetings are considered failures is not because it's hard to conduct a meeting. The problem is that most teams don't take the few minutes beforehand, during and after the meeting to talk explicitly about their process. So we think, hey, we need to get this work done. All right, calendar the meeting. And then we show up to the meeting and everyone gets on the call and we go, why are we here again? What's the purpose of the mystery meeting? And then people just start talking. Hey, I forgot to tell you, we need to schedule this, or we need to change this opportunity for this program, whatever it is. And we start going down these rabbit holes of other options or other conversations that actually don't contribute at all to the objectives of this individual meeting. So to correct that, before the meeting, we have to think strategically about the purpose and the design of the meeting, right? And then during the meeting, we have to ensure that everyone has the purpose and the design of the meeting and the agenda in front of them, so that they can clearly see what the goals are, and that they come to accept an agreement for what we're going to accomplish in the meeting. And then during the meeting, once you conclude each of your objectives, who's taking action steps to get those things done? How many times have we been a part of a meetings where, hey, we're going to go ahead and do this. We're going to roll out this new program. We need to have the program overview by next Thursday. Great, everyone agrees, but there's not an accountability partner. And we don't assign responsibility. And then we meet, because we have that calendared meeting, right? We have the meeting for next Tuesday, and we show, oh, I thought you were going to do it. Oh, I thought John was going to do it. So a huge step during the meeting is assigning, obviously roles and responsibilities and timelines for when those goals are expected to be completed. Third part of the meeting process, which many of us probably overlook, including myself, is after the meeting, assessing your work and making plans to do it even better next time. How many of you have heard the famous management principle, what gets measured gets done? Has anyone ever heard that? It's one of the most famous principles in management. I would say, in addition to that, what gets evaluated gets improved. So what gets managed gets done, and what gets evaluated gets improved. So if you're looking at your meetings and you're never evaluating them, you're probably never going to get feedback from your group or from your team members on what could be done better. And remember, as team leaders, we might be leading the team, but we want to collect as much feedback as we can to get the group's buy-in. Perhaps the reason that staff aren't participating or sharing is because they don't like how the team's meeting's being run, or they don't feel like they have a voice, or they don't feel like the tasks or objectives are important. So we have to be making sure that we're collecting and evaluating feedback from our team so that we can continuously improve those. So we're going to jump right into that first process. So, meeting process before the meeting. So what's important to consider? Okay. You need to address the following before you even have the meeting, before you even host it. This is all part of the planning process. Who's going to facilitate the meeting? Facilitator should be in charge of achieving the meeting's purpose. So you need to have a team leader. So whether that's your staff meeting, it's likely going to be you. If it's a project meeting, sometimes that can be a little more ambiguous because multiple of you and your staff are working together on a project, but who's going to facilitate the meeting? So say Tanner, Tanner's on my screen, so sorry I keep calling you out, Tanner, but say Tanner's been asked to schedule, I know Laval is Tanner's CEO. Laval asked you to schedule a meeting, and he goes, hey, Tanner, we need to take care of this. We need to schedule a meeting with the team. You might be in charge of scheduling it, right? But who's facilitating it? So sometimes we don't ask enough follow-up questions to the person that's told us to schedule the meeting. So, hey, CEO, or hey, boss, who's going to be facilitating this? Am I facilitating this? Or are you facilitating this? Who's going to manage time? Let's actually assign a timekeeper that's kind of a non-biased presence that goes, hey, I know we have this agenda item, but we really only scheduled 15 minutes for this. We need to move on. And that might be your facilitator of the meeting, but that might also be someone to elect. I like to schedule that as someone different than the facilitator because they're kind of that unbiased person that just goes, hey, I'm just looking at the agenda. I know we have a lot to get through. So assign someone that's actually a timekeeper. It's a really important tool. Who's going to participate in the meeting? Going back, Tanner Laval says, hey, I want you to schedule this meeting. Maybe get real clarity. Do we need John, Susie, and Sally? Do we need Sally, Richard, and Bob? Who are the people that we need in the meeting? And really get clarity. Why do we need them there? Right? It can be really easy. Like, we need the whole department. This is an issue related to volunteer services, or this is an accounting issue. Let's get the whole accounting team. But why? We sometimes, I think we skip this step and we don't really consider, well, who really needs to be there? And I think if you can do that, you're not going to have that monologue conversation, right? The type of meetings where it's just a monologue and two people talk. Really consider who needs to participate in the meeting and then invite them. Keeping the audience in mind is critical. And then come up with the agenda for the meeting or the handout to be distributed in the meeting, okay? So I want you to go ahead and take 5 minutes. I know this is on page 18. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to work independently. Think about that real meeting, that real reoccurring meeting, or something that you have coming up with your team, and actually use that as an archetype for today's handout. So think about when this is going to be. If you don't have an exact date, that's okay. In 2 weeks, but that date, where is it going to take place? Is it on Zoom? Is it in person? Which room is it in? Who's going to facilitate that meeting? Who are the participants that need to be there, and who needs to manage the time? So go ahead and take 3 or 4 minutes and fill that out on your worksheet. If you don't have it printed, just go ahead and write notes on a piece of paper or put it on a Word document. And then we'll come back together in 3 or 4 minutes. All right. Was that enough time for everyone? Okay, great. So hopefully you found that to be just a helpful, process to consider. I would encourage you to use this as a template for all of your meetings in terms of who's going to facilitate managing time. Has anyone ever had like a time manager? Is that a new concept to anyone? Have you heard that, of assigning someone to keep you on task and manage time? Yes, no, maybe so. Bertha, were you going to say something?
Yes, we don't, but I love the idea. I'm so excited.
Great. Yeah, no, I mean, it's such a simple thing, right? Let's have a time manager, but it really is that non-biased presence that can say, hey, let's table that, and we're going to talk about it later. You can put in the action items if we need to revisit this at a later time. So hopefully that's helpful. So the next section of your meeting, some of you highlighted, the importance of a good, strong team meeting is it has a very clear purpose. You can answer the question, why are we meeting? I would say this is the most important decision in the planning process. Can you, without a shadow of a doubt, answer why are you meeting and what are the objectives of the meeting that we hope to accomplish? So here you'll determine the purpose of your meeting. And there's 4 likely purposes to the meeting that the Go team content highlights. First, to share information. There's data or information or knowledge that participants don't currently have and need to be communicated in a meeting. You should consider, is this information something that can be shared via email, or is it something that needs to take place in kind of an interpersonal communication where you can share it and hear feedback and dialogue? The second is to make a decision. Oftentimes we schedule meetings, hey, we've talked about this as a group, we're going to come together and we're going to make a final decision. You have to face several options for taking action, and you need to evaluate which one is best, right? The third one is to solve a problem. How many managers are familiar with this, right? Oh, I need to talk to that employee. This is an issue that's in our process. We need to meet together and figure out why this keeps happening, because this can't keep going on. So you're facing an obstacle or a challenge and it must be resolved. So you move forward with your work and creating a team meeting. Or you have these ideation sessions, right? Where you're trying to generate fresh opportunities or new ways of doing work. Do any of your organizations do that? Maybe quarterly, maybe annually, you're scheduling a meeting of going, hey, let's come up with some new ideas for our program. How's this coming? What are we doing? What's working? What's not working? Some of us might not actually do that. I know there's many program managers, it just feels like we have no time. It's kind of a side bonus thing, but it's important to calendar time. If you're a program manager or you're a facility manager or you lead staffs, consider, where are those times in your calendar where you can actually evaluate how are things going? Do you have a quarterly check-in with your team to ask them, hey, what's going well, what's not going well, and collect feedback there? So we need to define the purpose. And so going back to your workbook, you'll see right below is our purpose section. Go ahead and identify what, out of those 4 categories, what is the goal of your meeting? What's the purpose of your meeting? Is it to share information, make a decision, solve a problem, or come up with ideas? If it's other, you can explain. And I want you to come up with a 2 to 3, overview sentence of why we are meeting. Okay. So explain in 2 to 3 sentences, why are we meeting? And then we're going to share those as a group. So as you see on the template, more specifically, we are meeting in order to, and then go from there. Sound good? Great. So it is 9:59. We'll give you till about 10:05. So you have about 5 minutes to work on this, and then we'll come back and we're going to share a few of our purpose statements for the meeting. Okay, hopefully that was enough time for you to think about a purpose statement. I'd love just to hear a few of you. Just let's hear from someone that maybe hasn't gotten a chance to share yet. What 2 to 3 sentences on the purpose of your upcoming meeting. So any volunteers?
I can go ahead and share.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Yeah, so for mine is related to meeting with our interns. So I put for the purpose of meeting is to share information and solve a problem. And then my sentence says we are meeting in order to review project progress, youth updates, and answer questions.
Awesome. And what are some of those project updates for which kind of projects?
So for our interns, we usually have them paired up in groups and we assign them a semester project that they're helping us with as part of their internship. And then in addition to that, they also have to work with our youth. So those are the kind of like the 2 main projects that they do. They do a semester project for us and then they also work with our youth.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, let's go here and hear from one more person that you hear your purpose statement of, why are you meeting?
I'll go. So my purpose the goal is to share information and solve a problem. And the more specifically to transfer external data into our internal database and why we're doing that.
So you're gonna share what you're gonna do and then why, the why behind your do is to explain to the people that'll be doing it, why are you actually doing this process?
Yeah.
Great, that's awesome. I think that's really helpful. Thanks for highlighting that, Tanner, because so often when we come to meetings, we don't have the why. We don't know what the point is. And that's really the question you're trying to answer here. Why are we meeting and what are we trying to accomplish by the end of this meeting? So great. So that's the first real step before you even create an agenda, right? So now that you've done that, stop, a little icon right here, and answer this question. Are you sure we need a meeting? Right? So you just did that prep work. You figured out who's the audience, what's the purpose of the meeting, what are the objectives? And before you go into planning the agenda and allocating all this time to that, answer that question. Do we really need a meeting for this? Are there other more efficient ways to accomplish this same outcome? If a meeting's necessary, are the right people involved? Are there others who need to be there? Are there some people currently on the list whose participation is not critical, right? Like we said, maybe you put 4 folks down and then you wrote your purpose statement and you go, actually, I don't think John needs to be in that meeting. Okay, let's get John off the meeting list. Let's not waste an hour of his time if he doesn't really need to be there. I'm sure that John would appreciate, an hour of his time back. So I want to just give me a thumbs up based off of your prep work. Are you sure that you need to have this meeting that we're talking about? And if not, I'd love if you did that purpose statement and you just kind of evaluated, we might not need a meeting. I would love to hear from you. Is there anyone that just kind of did that prep and goes, I don't know if we actually need to meet for this? Because that's actually great.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So in my case, okay, I have a lot of information in each monthly meeting, but what I see in my team, I can feel they enjoy the meeting because it's the only moment all the team are together. So we can share and say hello because we're running every educator is so busy. So for me, it's necessary, but what I need to do in my case is if I don't have too much to share, so I can maybe prepare a short meeting. But it's very important because I feel because sometimes we don't have or every single educator told me, oh Juan, what happened? So we need a meeting. So that's why in my case it's necessary.
Great. And you just did that evaluative process of deciding if it is, and that's really important to go through that and thinking through kind of doing the balance of skills. Hey, they really enjoy it. It's the only time they get to connect, but maybe we could send information ahead of time and do that balance process. And then once you go through that, then it's worth it. to commit to doing and planning the meeting out. And if it's not worth it, then that's great too. And figuring out, okay, how they still need that information, or they still need these updates. Is there a method of communicating it? But I hear you, Juan. I mean, I think if, especially in this virtual world, people are craving connection, right? We all want to have some type of opportunity to connect with our team. We're doing work, you know, in this like space where we don't see anyone, you know, there are emails back and forth, you're doing all things on your computer, but you're not actually like seeing any people. And sometimes, you know, meetings are really necessary just for that purpose. So, but make sure to articulate that in your purpose statement. Hey, the purpose is to do updates, but the purpose of this meeting is also for connection, is to get updates. How are people doing? What do they need? How can we support one another? And actually, we're going to talk about that on the agenda. Make sure to include that as an agenda item. Check in on your staff. How are people feeling? How are they doing? Where do they need support? Right? And you can do that in a team context. So awesome. So now we're moving on to the next step of developing the agenda. And as you know, if any of you have, you know, planned meetings, if you've been to a board meeting or more of a formal meeting, there's usually some type of agenda structure in place, and they take some time. So, you know, when you're mapping out the agenda for your staff meeting or team meeting or your volunteer or intern meeting, take the necessary time, because yeah, it might take you 45 minutes to make the agenda, but these are going to save you so much time in your actual meeting, right? So, you know, as probably can go without saying, but these items are what you'll cover in the meeting, listed in sequence. So you want your agenda to be ordered by time. So I like to include topic, who the speaker is, and then the amount of time that's going to take. So if you go back to your student guide, it's on the next page. You have, here's what we will do for our agenda. The agenda item is to build team connection. Here's who's going to lead it. Juan is going to lead that section, and Juan is going to lead that from 10:10 to 10:20, right? So we want to get very specific here. Here's what we're going to do. Here's who's going to do it, and this is how long it's going to take. Does that make sense to everyone? And so now I want to give you some time for this actual upcoming meeting. I know this, I want to acknowledge, I know it's kind of like, okay, you're going to make us now write these notes, but I want you just to get in the process of actually coming up with this agenda. It doesn't have to be super granular. Don't feel like you have to write out the whole thing, but go through a few points. You know, if it's a 30-minute meeting, what are you going to do for the first 20 minutes? Think about what's going to happen, who's going to do it, and how long is it going to take. So I'm going to give you 5 more minutes to do that, and I'm going to have 2 people share, 2 new people. So if you haven't shared yet, come prepared, because we're going to have you share what those agenda items are, and map that out. So go ahead and take 5 minutes to do that. It's 10:12 right now. 10:17, we'll come right back, and we'll have a couple of you share. So go ahead and write that in your notes, and that should be on page 18. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you're good. Give me a thumbs down if you need more time. See a couple thumbs. Okay, some more thumbs up. Anyone need more time? We can give you another minute if you need another minute. Okay, awesome. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and hear from one or two people. I don't want to spend too much time, an exhaustive list of your agenda, but I want to hear from one or two people that haven't shared yet. What were some of those agenda items? Were you able to elect who's going to lead them and find time? And with that, was it challenging for you? Was that a hard process? Was that easier than you thought? Let's go ahead and hear from one or two new people.
I can go.
Great.
It actually was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, but with the meeting I usually have with my boss, it's about 30 minutes on Tuesdays. So first we share sort of how our weekends were or how our week is going. I work Saturdays, so Tuesday is like my Monday. And so sort of catch them up what I did, what they did. So that's about 5 minutes we usually take at the beginning of the meeting just to see how everyone is, catch up with everyone. And then for the next 10 minutes or so, we go through what our weeks look like. And if there's any projects that need to be done, sort of assign projects to who needs to do that. If there's any, and then after that, we sort of have time to ask questions or bring up any problems. So if there was a volunteer oh, by the way, this volunteer reached out to me, he has a problem with X, Y, and Z, or this problem, or this volunteer came up with this problem or something within the organization. And then since I work for the rescue mission, we usually end in prayer for about 5 minutes. So that's the total of 30 minutes is sort of how everything goes. But that's pretty much our agenda. Our boss, Karen, sort of leads each one. There'll be some times where I'll go into the next, if I have a question after we finish what our weeks look like, then I'll sort of take charge and just say, hey, I have a question about this. And then we sort of move on into that. But it was pretty easy once you have sort of a good structure of what needs to get done.
Great.
Yeah.
That's it. That's awesome, Nancy. Thanks for sharing that. And, it's, like you said, it's if you have a clear structure of what you need, which is what's the item you're covering, who's going to lead it, and how long does it take? It's really not that hard. Just plug and chug those things, right? And it just takes that extra little bit of prep.
Yep, for sure.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else want to share and share their kind of experience in just doing a little draft agenda?
I can
All right. Okay, go for it, Dennis. Yeah.
So my agenda is for a development meeting that we have every other week surrounding our major individual donors. And so our meeting is, I structured it kind of to the first part of the meeting to be updates around donors since we last met. So did we have any donor meetings, any site visits, anything like that with any donors since our last meeting, so that we're all on the same page in terms of what activity has occurred. So kind of start out with updates on that. Then the next portion of the agenda, moving to more kind of forward thinking and kind of planning phase. Okay, who are the donors we need to reach out to next? How are we going to engage them? Kind of what are next steps with some donors we haven't talked to recently. And then kind of the final phase to wrap it up is kind of the who's doing what and the next steps. Okay, Dinesh, you're reaching out to this donor, Laval, you're reaching out to this donor, and so that we're clear in terms of who's doing what, between now and the next. It's a recurring meeting, so between now and the next meeting in 2 weeks, kind of what the action items are and who's doing what.
Great, that's excellent. I love the action items at the end. And Dennis, is that something you all normally have an agenda for, or would you be creating this type of agenda for the first time?
We have kind of have an agenda, but it's kind of the bones, I guess, kind of stay the same every time, but obviously the topics change every time. Got it.
So you kind of had kind of an informal structure, and then you're going to add a little more formality to it.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Great. That might be the case with a lot of us, right? We have in our heads, we know how the meeting's going to go, but making sure you have that printed copy of the agenda and you get that to everyone that's in the meeting before the meeting starts is huge for keeping everyone on task. Juan, I saw you had your hand raised. Did you have a question?
No, share something.
Yeah.
Because I think a good thing that I learned in these trainings with you, I remember months ago, we beginning to offer to plan the 2 meetings. Every week is an informal meeting. It's only 15, 20 minutes. It's not mandatory. I always, Monday, 9 a.m., I open the Zoom. So if some educator wants to talk with me, something personal or something about a specific, her issue, we can share every week.
Mm-hmm.
So this is good because I'm taking action in a specific, and maybe is not time I need to use in the general education meeting. It's monthly. So
Right.
that's a great. So I have the monthly meeting is mandatory for all educators, and the informal meeting is anyone's to connect with me to share something maybe in private or maybe personal. So we can say, so it is helped honestly, because for the meeting, so the participant is for the monthly meeting, the participant is all the team, and I'm the facilitator. So quickly, welcome, icebreaker, kudos, to say thank you, or maybe to thanks to anyone, or maybe, yeah. And time for share. Every educator has 2 minutes to share maybe any issue, what good thing what happens in a class, or maybe a technology problem has, or maybe yeah, okay. So with that, department updates, what's going on, what's new, what we need to change, maybe the Zoom registration or pools or questions. The company, about moms updates about the general company, because I'm participating in the managers meetings too, so I can recollect information I can share with my team. And at the end, pending things, or maybe events coming, yeah, and that's it.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's so great, Juan. And I think to your first point, I think Juan's kind of talking about for his formal meetings, like whether that's with your staff and your team, and then that informal meeting. I think thanks for bringing that up, Juan. I think that's a great tool. Is maybe you don't have the time in your team meetings to check in how everyone's doing in this virtual world. We have the new privilege of, you can't have that open door policy per se, right? Where when you're in the office, someone can just knock in, hey Juan, can I talk to you about this? So what are those spaces you're creating for your employees, for your volunteers, your interns, your teams, to where they can get, talk to you and share feedback? Maybe you have a one-on-one, but might be a good best practice. Schedule a 30-minute block on Zoom on Tuesday mornings. You're there at 9 a.m. People come, great. If they don't, great. But you're making that an opportunity for your staff to meet.
And sometimes, Kevin, I'm alone, so no
right.
one, no one connect. Okay, I wait 5 minutes, close the Zoom, and yeah, so it's okay.
Go back to it. Yeah, it's 5 minutes of your time, and the cost benefit there is huge, right? Like, you're taking 30 minutes out of your week, but the impact that has on your team, knowing that you're making yourself available to them, is invaluable. The employee engagement, the commitment to the organization, the staff morale just skyrockets when you create opportunities like that. So put that best practice in your back pocket, and maybe consider that for some of your team meetings in the future. One thing Juan highlighted that I thought that we've been doing at 1OC during the pandemic, which might be helpful for some of your staff meetings, he said kudos. We do shout outs. So at the end of every team meeting we have on Wednesdays, we do shout outs, and it's as simple as, hey, I really appreciated how Sarah led this meeting, or how Sarah got this project done, or hey, we're redoing our website and we've come up to all these barriers, and Tanner's shown just resilience to get that project done. And it's really crazy to see like the morale boost that it's causing our team. So maybe something to add as an agenda item for maybe a future team meeting you have is just shout outs or kudos. I'll be honest with you and say like the first couple may be a little not awkward, but just kind of like people are getting used to that culture of
You're right.
okay,
You're right.
You had the same thing, one, right? Yeah, like you're affirming, but after people get a hold of it, it's the best part of our meetings now. People look forward to it. Like our CEO will close the meeting and people, hey, what about shout outs? Like now it's become a part of our culture where we really want to do it. So I know that's kind of a separate thing, but maybe somebody consider in a future meeting you plan with your team is shout out or kudos and to build that staff morale. Okay, so hopefully you found that helpful for the agenda process. So the next step in the prep, right? We're still in the prep stage. We haven't even had the meeting yet. So I'm going to move us along, is the complete the getting ready section. So what actions or pre-work need to be completed in order to be prepared for this meeting? So I'll give you an example. We're meeting as a team at 10C, had a couple meetings. It's me, myself, our volunteer services director, and our CEO. And we have, some of you might have taken it, we have a volunteer management certificate that you take through 10C online, right? And long story short, there two departments are involved in that process, my department and the volunteer service department. And so we're meeting to clarify roles, expectations, you know, who's going to do what moving forward in this new season at 10C. And we could have just met, right? And had an hour-long conversation around, well, what about this? What about that? Who does this part? But I really valued our CEO said, hey, Kevin, before we meet, I need you to come ready with something. I need you to get ready for the meeting. I want you to create a current process map. So what is the current state of how this process goes in our organization? And so when we showed up for the meeting, we had this process map and we were able to go left to right through the process and go, oh, that needs to change. Okay, let's update this. Rather than having no structure and just showing up and going, okay, we know the purpose, it's to fix the process map, but sometimes you have to do some of that prep work to really make sure you can move the needle forward. So I showed up with the process map and that meeting happened in 40 minutes. We updated all the items, we knew what we needed to do, and then we had parking lot items of, okay, before the next meeting, we need to address this. So the point being is, you know, really come up with, bring the materials in advance, send them to folks. Hey, I need you to read this grant proposal before our meeting. I need you to read this PDF of the proposed change before, so they come in with context, because we waste so much time at the front end, 30 minutes, 20 minutes trying to explain, hey, this is what we're doing, when you could have sent that in advance so that when you show up for the meeting, you can start actually making changes and doing the work. Does that kind of make sense to everyone? Sending those pre-work assignments, getting ready and prepping. Any questions there, or maybe examples of folks, maybe how you've done that? Have you sent pre-work in advance? Has that worked well, or any questions? All right, we'll move along then. So next step, make sure you write an ending time on your agenda meeting. So like we said, we want to have times for each activity, who's responsible for what, have an ending time and get the buy-in from the group. Hey, we will be finishing at this time, and make sure you end the meeting, even if you're not done. And that is maybe kind of contradictory to what some of you would think, but that is a leading best practice of, hey, we're ending the meeting. Like today, we are going to try to end our training at 11:15 or 11, and we're going to do that. And when you create that expectation amongst the people in the meeting, it helps move the meeting along, because people are looking at the clock going, we only have 30 minutes. And if we don't get to this, it's not going to get done. So you need to set the end time for your meeting and make sure that everyone's agreed to that end time. And then as the leader of the meeting, make sure you hold to that. And that's going to help for the future. Hey, I know last time we set an 11 o'clock and we didn't get through everything. We need to really make sure, let's move along our work here so that we don't get stuck on items, because we only have 1 hour. And then distribute this forum to all the meeting participants, so I'll have a shared understanding of what is going to happen. So that would be, this is what you're going to share in advance if you're taking notes. You're going to share the agenda, you're going to share the getting ready section with any needed attachments, and then you're going to share the ending time of the meeting. Okay, so you're going to send that all in advance so that by the time that folks get to the meeting, they have context about what you're meeting about, they have the agenda, and they know the time that they can expect for the meeting. Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions there? Awesome. Okay, so I've been talking for an hour and a half. Give me a thumbs up if you want to take 5-7 minute break, or if you want, we have about another 30 minutes. Do folks want to push through, or do we want to take a 5-minute break? Give me thumbs up for break, thumbs up, or thumbs down for let's just keep going. Break, okay. Okay, it looks like we need a break. Okay, So we'll do 7 minutes. I have 10:32 on my phone. Let's come back at 10:39 and we'll finish the last 30, 40 minutes of the session today. right, I have 10:39 on my clock. If you're back with us, go ahead and turn your camera on for me. Great to see your faces. Hopefully you're able to do a quick break. All right, everyone back. If you do have your camera on, I know it's some of you are probably in different workplaces, but it'd be excellent if you could turn it on just so we can make sure we know you're back. Greatly appreciate that. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. So just to give you a fair picture, it's 10:40. I'm gonna try and get us to finish up around 11:10. So we're gonna jump back in. We're gonna push through this. So I know Zoom fatigue is real. I've experienced it all the more, just like you all. So we'll make sure that we're moving along. All right. So we're moving into step 2, which is during the meeting. So I'm gonna do real quick a quick poll. So during the meeting, what are some of the most important elements? I want to hear your thoughts. So this poll is going to pop up. And go ahead and answer this question for me. I'm curious what your thoughts are. And for those of you that don't like tests, there's no wrong answer here. So just whatever you feel is the best answer. No pressure. Okay, awesome. A few people haven't answered, but maybe they're still coming back from the break. But most of you said all of the above, which is a great answer because all those are essential elements. We need to involve participants. We don't want to get stuck in the monologue where just 2 people are talking. We need to stay on task so that we're making sure that we're moving through. We need to make it fun, engaging. I love that Dennis shared at the beginning. He was just honest and he goes, what's your favorite meetings? Well, the ones that are fun and engaging, and then we get to brainstorm and laugh and have a good time. Sure, there's going to be meetings where you have a retreat with your staff, but you can bring elements of that into every single meeting, right? You can bring fun and excitement into every single meeting. We do a thing at one of our team meetings we started doing virtually, where it's called Time for Trivia. So people were showing up a little bit late, right? So like our staff meetings Tuesday or Wednesdays at 2, and people would come at like 2:03. And so our leadership team was like, what can we do to get people to get there on time? And so we do this Time for Trivia where we come up with a trivia question each week. And then everyone that wins, you get a $5 Amazon gift card or a $5 Target gift card or whatever. And you can only answer the question. We start right at 2 o'clock, more like 1:59. And so if you jump on late, you don't hear the question. So now every single person's on time at 2 o'clock. They're at our training. So just a fun little way. Like I'm always looking forward to 2 o'clock. I want to get that gift card. I've won a couple times. So think of little things like that you can do to get your staff excited and keep everybody on track. So moving along, we have those kind of key elements during the meeting. On the day of the meeting, make sure you're distributing page 21, which I guess would be page 19 in your workbook, and encourage all members to complete the sheet during the meeting. So that might sound weird, but page 19 actually gives response for the folks that are in the meeting to highlight what did we talk about, what was the purpose, and looking ahead. So you can print this out as a template if you'd like to. So it's not just sending the pre-meeting work, it's also, welcome to our meeting. You're listing who was here, it's kind of like taking minutes. Some of you probably just take meeting minutes. This is a very similar process of taking meeting minutes. The reason for meeting was this, what we talked about, what we concluded, and then by who and by when. So if you look on page 19, that's a really helpful template to summarizing your meetings, to making sure, or doing during the meeting, to making sure that all the agenda items are hit. So you can look at your agenda and then you can look at the what we accomplished section. And if there's some gaps there, hey, we set out to do this, but we only accomplished this. You have to figure out when are you going to accomplish those remaining 2 items. Maybe they're parking lot issues. So they're issues that came up that were a part of the agenda, but we didn't have the necessary information to address them at that time. So they become parking lot issues to address at your next meeting. And so you need to figure out, okay, what didn't we know? Like, why couldn't we answer that, or why couldn't we discuss it? and what needs to happen between now and the next meeting so that we can solve that problem. Does that make sense to everybody? So this is a helpful template to use during your meeting. And going back to, during the meeting, like I said, we want to involve participants, staying on task, make it fun and engaging, and come to agreements and decisions. But that process can be a little bit challenging, right? We were talking about how especially on Zoom, it's hard to involve participants. Folks get distracted, staying on task. Coming to agreements can be challenging because people have different perspectives. And how do we make it fun and engaging? So I want to give us a little bit of time. We're going to use this annotation tool again. Starting with in this first quadrant, involving participants, I want us to answer some of these questions. How do you currently manage people who dominate conversations? And how about this? I'll take away your, you don't even have to annotate, I'll do it for you, but go ahead and unmute yourself. And I want to hear at least from 4 or 5 people, share with us. Maybe you have an experience where someone dominates the conversation. How do you manage that so that you can make sure that everyone's involved? What's that look like?
I'll ask my team members what are their thoughts or opinions on whatever the topic we're discussing in the moment.
Yep. So soliciting feedback. Great. What else? Maybe to add on to that question, so how do we manage people that dominate? And how do you also draw in people that might be a little more quiet, right? There's always going to be those people that aren't going to be the first people to share, maybe a little slower to warm. How do you draw those people in? How do you manage that? How do you manage the room as a leader?
Okay, I'll go. It's 2 different questions to say that way, but yes, the people that are dominating, maybe not letting other people talk, thank them for the participation and redirect the conversation and ask the rest of the team members to participate so that is addressed and it's clear that we're looking for this participation. In terms of involving participants, I've done a couple of things, something very similar to what Juan mentioned before, which is everyone, at least in our staff meeting, has an opportunity and a scheduled opportunity to talk. So they should come prepared, and they are, hopefully getting over fear of speaking in public or whatever situation is, because they'll have a brief time to provide updates. And the other thing that I've done, at least for my staff meeting, because what I realized at one point is that everyone is talking in the particular scheduled time, but maybe just a small group of people is providing feedback, let's say for clinical cases, and why not? And I wanted to encourage more participation is I started allocating and rotating who will lead the meeting. Instead of being just me, I still provide the agency updates, staff updates, and all of that. But so they will have turns, and it became almost a task, of course, to see, okay, it's important to be providing feedback, and it became a little bit fun because a few of them will use my same words or so, pretend to be me, so they had a blast, let's say. They had a laugh at my expense, which is all good. It's made the meetings fun, and still we move them along, and why not? There's a timekeeper still keep the meeting on task. So those have been some of the things that we've done.
Those are great. Thank you so much for sharing those. Yeah, I think scheduling opportunities for everyone to talk. So, how we talked about in the beginning, you're doing that assessment of who needs to be in this meeting. If they're not going to talk, they might not need to be in that meeting unless they're like taking notes or minutes. So once you evaluated, okay, these 3 people need to be in the meeting, they should all have a role, right? They should all have a role to play in that meeting. So schedule opportunities for each person to talk. And then I love that you brought that up, rotate who will be leading the meeting. That can be a fun thing, like they kind of imitated, you as the leader. That's awesome. And it's really a huge development opportunity, right? I remember at the YMCA, I was a part of the management team, and our executive director, he'd always rotate us, and that really, it just made you kind of stay on your toes, but you gain that leadership experience of how to lead a meeting and how to influence and manage performance and all those things. So it's a great opportunity to rotate staff to develop those people as well. It's a great development opportunity. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing those. Those are really helpful. Okay, moving on to staying on task. What do you do when meetings keep flying off the rails or getting stuck? So people jump in and they take it a million different directions. We're going on variants. And and you're not able to keep the meeting on task. How have you managed that in the past? And based off of what we talked about today, what might you do differently?
People usually, if they get off topic, there's whoever's managing the meeting usually identifies that you've gone off topic and to refocus. So just point out that we need to refocus.
Yep. So almost even if I'm hearing you right, Tanner, like quite literally naming it explicitly, like, hey, we're kind of getting off track here. Let's make sure to bring it back. We're covering this item. Sometimes you have to be that direct, right? That's great. What else have folks done? That is obviously probably going to be one of the main things you do, but let's think about maybe before, here, I'll give you an example. Let's think about before the meeting or after the meeting. If you know someone that continuously derails the meeting, what kind of conversation could you maybe have with them? Obviously kind and encouraging, but what might need to be communicated to them in advance or after the meeting if that continues to be a pattern?
You could ask them, oh,
Go ahead.
You can just let them know that in the nicest way possible that you want to stay on task. So you ask them if they could sort of keep their question or their comments, if it's about comments and getting off task, to maybe after the meeting, or if let's say the meeting runs early, then they can talk about those things after you've gone over all your topics.
That's exactly right. So it's also exactly. It's budgeting in a time for questions and additional thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So if you budget that into your agenda, you can kind of, as the leader, you have a scapegoat of, hey, I think that's such a great idea. Let's plan to talk about that at the end when we have our questions, right? Because what are you doing there? You're not ignoring their question. You're still validating, hey, yeah, you have a thought or a perspective that you want to share. We appreciate that, but let's do that in the right timing. And so schedule time for questions or additional items at the end of the meeting so that folks can bring those up. And if you don't have enough time, message that person directly, email them, hey, I love the thing that you brought up. I'd love to set up a 10-minute call with you to discuss more in depth, right? Or you as the leader even saying, hey, Juan, that was an excellent point. We do need to address that. It's not really pertinent to this meeting. Can we set up 15 minutes to talk about that offline? Because what you don't want to do is, hey, that's not what we're talking about right now. Hey, sorry, we don't have time for that. It really might be a really important issue, but everything has its place, right? And everything has its context. So as the manager or the leader, show that you care. Take that time to say, hey, I really appreciate what you brought up, but probably can't tackle that right now. Let's set up a time offline. That means so much, because then the employee is still getting to share their perspective, but your meeting is also not getting derailed. All right, coming to agreements. We all know how hard this can be. We danced around for 20 minutes around an idea, and then everyone kind of pauses and looks to the leader. This is what normally happens. You're in a group of 5 people. Everyone shares their opinion, and then everyone looks to the leader to go, so what are we going to do? Has anyone had that experience? There's always, anytime you enter a room, there's always an unnamed leader. You could be in a flattened leadership structure in the sense of, like, let's say, me, Tanner, and Juan are all on the same team. We're all equals. There's always, in any meetings, there's always a leader. There's always someone that's influencing people look to. So our tendency is to, okay, the leader's going to come to that agreement, or the leader's going to make that decision. Maybe, but maybe as a leader, you need to help other people come to making those agreements. So how do you get everyone as a leader to land on the same general place by the end and to reach a consensus? What are some strategies for that? What have folks tried to, hey, we just talked for 20 minutes. How do we bring that all together to making a real decision here, coming to an agreement? I might call on some folks. We haven't heard from Martha or Mia or Xiomara. If any of you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear from you. How do you help folks come to an agreement?
I'll go.
Yeah, great, go for it.
So for me, I'm big on, like, when people give complaints, or that they come with a solution as well. So
then the solution allows us to come, if their solution and all the thoughts together, it allows us to come to an agreement. Like, because sometimes just talking it out, I'm for myself, I'm not chatty, so that's probably why I don't jump in every time you say share. So, but for me, when I talk it out, sometimes before I even finish what I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, there it is. That's not gonna work, or that was a good idea, and then I can finish my sentence. But in my head, it might sound great, but before I've expressed it. So for me in meetings, I like for people to express themselves, because it may be something that they were thinking that I wasn't thinking, and then they share it, and then it's like, oh, that makes better sense than what I was saying, because what I was saying was just no, or whatever the case is. So yeah, for me, it's talking it out.
That's great. Dennis or Tanner, your CEO, I worked with him for a long time, does a great job of this. What does Laval say sometimes? He says yes and. Have you ever noticed Laval ever says that? He always says that, right?
All the time.
So what do you think about that? That's kind of what I'm hearing we're saying here is, give people a place to share their additional thoughts. What does that look like for you on your team? I know he does that frequently.
I mean, it just like what you said, it's being open to kind of all ideas, and all feedback, versus I think naturally people's natural reaction is no, but so it's just switching how you think of it. It's thinking of instead of thinking of the reasons why you can't do something, it's thinking of the reasons why you can't do something.
Right. And that mindset is really helpful to bring into your meetings, is yes and, not no. Like we can want to stay on track, and so we say, no, sorry, it's yes, and let's talk about that more. Let's consider it. Explain to me why. At the end of the day, sometimes you have to come to a general decision, and you can't have everyone's opinions, but the more you can get that, give people a place to share their feedback, you can help with finding a place to land and reach a consensus. And say, for example, you have 5 people in the meeting and you're hearing 4 or 5 different perspectives. You probably can't come to a consensus yet, right? Because if you as the leader just say we're doing this, but the 4 other people are sharing their different perspectives, you're not going to have the buy-in from those 4 people to then carry out that decision, right? So if you're hearing different perspectives and it's hard to land on a general consensus, seek to understand more, right? Seek to understand, okay, help me understand why you don't think this is going to work. Because as the leader, like we were just saying, a lot more might be unveiled to you. Oh, I didn't see it that way. I hadn't heard that perspective. And as leaders, sometimes we don't see everything that's going on, right? We're maybe in a position of leadership, we're not doing the day-to-day tasks, and we can miss things. So make sure that you're giving people a place to share additional thoughts and feedback. I thought that was a great point. All right, making it fun and engaging. How will you make this into the kind of meeting that you would like to look forward to? So Dennis, you shared at the beginning, like the meetings that you look forward to, we all kind of shared. Do you all have that mindset going into planning your meeting? Hey, is this a meeting that I would want to attend? Right? Like maybe you're the boss or the leader or the manager, so you have to like run this, but to adopt that lens of, okay, how can I curate this to be a meeting that I would want to go to? So I'm curious, as some of you and most of you have led different meetings, what have been some of your successful things you've done that have made your meetings fun and more engaging for your staff?
At South County Outreach, when we have our bi-weekly meetings, we start each one out with like an icebreaker question. I like it just because it gets everyone to engage, and it kind of makes you more comfortable in the conference room and speaking to the big group and getting to learn a little bit more about the people that you work with.
Yeah, icebreakers are so helpful. Like, take the tension off. Remember that we're all people. We're all showing up to work as our whole selves. And then people feel a little safer. Like, hey, I just got to connect with this person. Now, when we talk about this kind of more tensioned issue that we're trying to resolve, you're connected to that person, and you maybe have more understanding, or rather than just coming in cold. Sometimes we come from 4 meetings preceding that, and then we're just in this go, go, go mode. We don't really take the time to go, oh yeah, we're all people. Like, how are you doing today? How are you? So yeah, I think scheduling icebreakers, check-ins, those are really helpful. What else have folks done to, keep meetings fun and engaging?
I would say I'm changing the setting. So now, we have been having meetings virtually online, and now that we are able to be back at the office, we recently had our meeting at the park. And that was just, that just made us look forward to it, and it just made it more fun and engaging. So I would say changing the setting of our meeting.
Such a great point. Do you remember when we were kids and you would have field trip, or you would have class outside, and like your teacher would tell you, hey, this week we'll have an extended recess, or we're gonna do math outside, and we looked forward to that, right? I can't wait till Thursday, we get to do class outside. The same is for adults. That doesn't really change. So changing your environment and the setting is really, really helpful. That's a great point. What else? Let's get a few more. What have you done, or what could you do to make your meetings more fun and engaging? Maybe some type of reward? What type of what comes to mind there maybe?
We do in our, not necessarily in my department meetings, but in the all agency staff meetings, we do those once a month. We do something very similar in concept that what you were mentioning for people to arrive early, but this is not for everyone, is that we'll do like change sort of like dynamics and do like a scavenger hunt, with things around the house right now, and because of the pandemic is in Zoom, or we'll have like it's Halloween or St. Patrick's Day, a custom contest. So it's like first, second, and third winner, or we have a trivia. So any kind of, we try to change it every month so that there's 3 winners among the whole, we're about 100 people in the staff. But just to make it fun and do something a little bit different before going into business. And then we also do have an employee or a story of the month. So we encourage all the employees, at least a few people per department, to share stories of the clients, how they're impacting the life of the clients or the community at large. And we do have, it's something very symbolic, we have like a little trophy that is like an S for the story, and why not? We have 2 of them, or so we have offices in multiple counties, and we will send one per county to the person that, that was selected by the group. So the group gets to select the stories of the month. So this is just to keep morale up, and once again, to do something that is a little bit extra than just talking about business specifically, or the service, or whatever the situation is.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, it's the little things, and you can be creative to your own agency. What makes sense, right? The trophy might make sense for you. Maybe there's that thing around the office that filters around, and it's like, I don't know, I can't think of something, but like you did ultimate Frisbee tournament and everyone signed it, and like you pass that around for each person that's talking. Like, find what that thing is specifically to your team. I love that you highlighted story of the month or mission moment. This is important for any organization, but essential for a nonprofit. So even if, how about this? Even if it's not your whole staff, or sorry, not the whole team of the organization, maybe just your individual team, have one person share, hey, what's one highlight of the work you did today that impacted one of our clients, or impacted one of our customers, or impacted and served our mission? And we all got into this sector not because we wanted to be rich, or we wanted to be famous. We probably would have chose a different profession. We got into this sector because we care about people, right? And we care about the impact, and we care about the mission that we've signed up for. So that is a huge piece to bring that into your meetings. And I would even start with that, even if it's your department meeting or team meeting. Hey, we're going to start with a quick mission moment. And I would say ask someone in advance and rotate. That's another thing you could rotate. Hey, we're going to have John share the mission moment this week. Alex is going to share it next week. And that's just a great way to promote that engagement and making sure that, people are hearing the work you're doing. Because if you're anything like me, you can be so busy doing the day-to-day operations that you sometimes forget why we're doing it, right? And you all have mission critical organizations where you're serving people with needs, and we want to keep that at the forefront of our minds. So great job. I think that those are really helpful. Okay, moving along. So the end of the meeting. So we always want to ask ourselves at the end of the meeting, and this is on page 22 -2, so probably page 19 or 20 in your workbook. You want to ask yourself, how did we do? Right? Do you remember I said in the beginning, you know, the #1 management principle, what gets measured gets done, and what gets evaluated can be improved. And so if we're never evaluating our meetings, we don't know how they could be improved. So if you look on your worksheet, you'll see that there's actually a section on the last page that says, you know, our team's committed to learning. Before we adjourn, we use this 5-finger assessment. You can do it that way. You could send a post survey out once a month. You can ask your team members in their one-on-ones, but they just have it, you know, on here, a few questions that I want you to consider that you should ask yourself at the end of every meeting. Did we accomplish our objective? And that can be on a scale of 1 to 5, you know, 1 being very disappointed, 2 disappointed, 3 kind of in the middle, we kind of did it, 4 satisfied, and 5, yeah, we absolutely crushed that. We did it. So did we accomplish our objectives? Did we stick to our agenda? Did we clarify next steps? Did we model our team's values? We didn't really talk about that, but that's something to consider. What are the values that you have as your team? Maybe that's, hey, we respect everyone's opinion and we let everyone share and have a voice. Okay, let's measure that. How often did we interrupt? Did we let people share their perspectives? Or we have a value to value people's time and make sure we get work done on time. Did we end the meeting at 11 o'clock like we said we would, right? Those are the questions to ask. And then did we stick to our team's operating guidelines? And then you can, you know, take a second to reflect. To make the next meeting even better, we agreed to do what? So you get the feedback from the group, and I'll give you an example. Hey, we didn't really stick to the agenda. We scored probably like a 2 on the agenda. All right, as a team, we're agreeing to the next meeting. We are going to walk through this meeting step by step through the agenda, right? So members can complete that feedback survey. Like I said, you can do, you know, send a survey, or you can have that template. Feel free to use that if you want. You can print that out and use it for your staff. And make sure to ask that feedback. How did we do? Was it good? Was it bad? Any questions? Sorry, before I move on, any questions just thus far or around the evaluation process? The main thing to remember is that just to really ask the question, how did we do? So before we move on, I'm actually curious, does anyone do that already? Does anyone ask their staff how the meetings are going, or is this kind of a new idea to some of us?
For me, I ask how the meetings are going. I think what I explained earlier in our conversation when we did the introductions, a lot of times everyone is so quiet. So right. For me, I want to, like, is the information helpful? Am I talking too much, which I don't? Or, you know, because once I'm talking about something that I need to talk about, I'll give you all my attention. I will share. Am I not holding your attention? Is this not, are you not interested in what we're talking about?
Right.
Like different questions. So for me, usually, especially like I said earlier, I'll get a lot of comeback like, hey, I didn't want to ask you in front of everybody. So then it's like, well, why not? What's your reason for not sharing that which would help all of us, or things like that? So why weren't you able to share? It's not like we are over here fighting every day or nothing. So why couldn't we have shared with the people that we see for 8.5 hours? So I do ask. I ask all the time, how are the meetings going? What do you get out of the meetings? Are the meetings helpful for you? Because we do ours weekly. And for me, sometimes I'm like, no, maybe they don't want to talk every week. So maybe we should do, I'll skip a week. And then when we get to that skipped week, but that whole week that we missed, they have a whole bunch of questions. And then when we get to the meeting that the scheduled meeting, no one says nothing. So yeah, I do ask all the time, how is this going? How is this working for you?
That's so good, because I think we have to remember that meetings aren't static. They constantly need to evolve with the status of the organization, right? So if you have a recurring meeting for like a project, maybe that's only going to be for 4 weeks, right? You're going to meet every Tuesday for 4 weeks. But when we're talking about our department meetings or our team meetings, the needs and the demands of our team are constantly changing, right? So we can't think that we're going to apply the same formula for a meeting to that group because it's always evolving. And so the way that we get insight into how we need to change the meeting is by asking the question, what's working? What could be done better? What needs to change? And I love what you said, because, you know, we get insight into why aren't people sharing? Like you get a lot of key data, huh? You get a lot of information. Oh, I don't feel safe because so-and-so. Oh, okay, we have a staff problem. Or I'm really busy, you know, I have this stressful thing at 11:30 because that's when my wife comes home or my husband comes home or my partner comes home and they're loud. Okay, maybe we should schedule our meetings for 12 o'clock. You know, like you, unless you ask why, you don't get the insight into what could be done better. Maybe it's timing. Maybe it's who in the meeting. Maybe it's staff conflict, you know. So those are all things we need to consider. And when we ask the question, how did we do? And you ask people that specifically, you give them a place to share their feedback and improve the meeting. All right, so we're kind of we're wrapping up here. We're going to land the plane. Back to work application plan. So hopefully this was just kind of a helpful overview in terms of a framework to think about planning, managing, and then evaluating your team meeting. So all the front end is funny, right? It's kind of at the planning. That's probably 60% before you even get to the meeting. But I promise you, if you do that initial planning process, you're probably going to eliminate a lot of unnecessary meetings in your organization and in your team. So if you walk away with anything today, I want you to think about, do we really need to meet? And in order to meet, remember, you have to be able to answer that purpose question. Why are we meeting, and what are the objectives we're going to accomplish in the meeting? If you can't answer those two questions, don't meet, right? And then once you say yes to that, you plan the agenda, you get everyone the needed resources, you have the meeting, and then remember some of the things we talked about. How do we keep people on track? How do we manage engagement? How do we make sure the meeting's fun? And then after the meeting, hey, we did that. It went decently well. What could be improved? Asking the question why. So hopefully you find that framework helpful to think about when you're leading future staff meetings. Before we go into kind of workplace application, we have a couple minutes. I want to give you a second. What was not covered, or what challenges are you maybe still facing in your meetings, or things maybe you came into this training going, hey, I want to get this, that this framework doesn't address? And I would love to give us 5 minutes to kind of answer questions or talk through that. So anything that we didn't cover that you go, hey, what about this? Or I need more insight into this area. I'm going to stop sharing so we can all see each other. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go. So yeah, sorry.
No, I really appreciate it.
Talking, as you can see.
No, it's great.
I think that I don't know if this is going to be helpful, and maybe this is something that we're going to discuss to come. But as we are still sort of like moving to a hybrid mode and anticipating still a good amount of Zoom meetings, I think, at least from my perspective, it will be pretty helpful to try to find maybe additional online tools to run effective meetings. Yes. That from like interactive type, because there's something that we lose, of course, not being in person. And as I say, I agree with somebody mentioned before, some meetings are going to start being in person, and why not? But the meetings that have larger groups or so still are going to remain for the time being directed by Zoom. So any additional effective online tools or systems that we can utilize will be very beneficial at this point for us.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. That is such a great point to cover, especially in this world. So let me give you a few best practices that just, I should have included this in there, so I appreciate you bringing it up. And I'll send all of you some resources too, to some different online tools, because there's more now than there ever has been, right? And we're just going to keep growing, because you all know, right? We're not just going to go back to the office and things aren't going to be normal. The virtual world and the hybrid world is here to stay. So this is a whole new market in terms of the way we do meetings right now. If you come to a training next year, I guarantee you it's going to look a lot different. And then in 5 years, we're probably going to have holograms or something, and you'll feel like you're in person. But just kidding. But who knows? So a few practical tools. You notice we used polling to vote, right? That's one that we use pretty frequently. breakout rooms. So something we do in our team meeting is, in addition to the the initial question, or sorry, the trivia question we do at the front, we do the trivia, and then we go straight into the get to know you group question. So we do that with our larger staff meeting. You might not, with your team meeting, you might not need to do a breakout if it's just 4 people. But with our larger team meetings, if you have 10, 15, 20, 30 folks, I never interact with accounting, right? But every Wednesday, I get put in a breakout room with someone in accounting, and I get to learn about something that they're interested in, something they're passionate about. So we come up with a different question every week. Sometimes they're pretty deep, like, what if you could go back and change one thing from your past, what would it be? Sometimes it's as lighthearted as, what are you doing for Super Bowl? Or think of an experience. What did we do recently? Oh, if you could have this was a great question. If you could have any song playing when you walked into a room every time, what would it be? Like fun, we do fun stuff like that. So what are those questions that you can do to keep staff engaged and have those types of breakouts? Thank God that Zoom has added more emojis, right? But those can be helpful, and they're going to keep growing. But have people, hey, how do you feel about that? Great. I feel great about that. Or no, I have a question. I want to ask something. Teach people how to use these features that are on here. You can have people vote. I take a verbal vote poll, and then another thing you can do is, I'm not sure, are any of you familiar with word clouds? So you can basically you can pose a question to the group, kind of like we did with screen sharing, and then you can have everyone type in an answer, and then you share your screen, and all the responses show up on the screen, and everyone gets to see what everyone else thought. So that could even be for a staff encouragement. Like we did that for someone that was leaving the organization, and we didn't have time to go around the table and say everything we appreciate about them, but we said, hey, here's a link to the word cloud. We wanted you to write 4 or 5 words that describe this person. They all put it in, then we pressed go, and 90 words showed up on the screen, and our volunteer services director is crying, right? Because it's our whole staff team saying 90 amazing words about who this person is, right? So those are just a few kind of creative solutions to keeping team members engaged. I'd encourage, this one's probably obvious, but keep your cameras on, have a policy for that, unmute yourself. Those are the practical things. You can't read body language, so it's helpful to have at least the camera on. But let's hear from 1 or 2 more people. What else have people tried? Is there anything that's worked really well for virtual meetings? All anyone can think about right now is, Kevin, you said this meeting was going to end at 11:15, and it's 11:17. I'm not keeping my promise. Learn from my mistake.
I can go. I know that with us, especially being at the rescue mission, we didn't actually close. So there were still people coming in to the office. And as you can tell, we're all still sort of here. And even last year around this time, we were still there. So it was kind of funny because we would do one of our development team meetings, all through Zoom, even though we were all in cubicles next to each other. So it also just became kind of funny if we all had to mute ourselves, because if we were all unmuted, you could just hear it reverberate against all of the walls. So just having fun. We always found our boss Anna would always find something new and fun for us to do while we were sort of all just sitting next to each other. And so we would have our little things that we could show people. So it was always fun, but it was always funny that we were having this giant team meeting right next to each other while we were on Zoom. So just trying to make lighthearted of the situation of just making sure we were still being safe, but also all still being together. And then you could sort of just hear everyone. And then months later, we were able to actually go back into one room together. And if people didn't feel safe, then they were able to Zoom in. So just finding fun ways and lighthearted ways to make it. So
that's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think you just highlight a bigger point too. It's we just need to be understanding. And I think we've seen across the world, there's more of a common grace for, hey, all right, yeah, your kid just ran through the background, or your dog's barking. We're all humans, and we all are living our normal lives in the workplace. So I think the more you can encourage and not make your staff feel bad if, hey, I can't be on camera today. I had to take my kid to preschool. I'm not ready. Cool, no worries. We appreciate that you're here. And doing just more ways like that to make people feel valued and human. But I think also sometimes clarify, hey, I need set the expectation. I need everyone's cameras on. I want everyone's participation. I want you to show up for this meeting like it's kind of more professional. Clarify that expectation and communicate that in advance so people know, because there's, it's like, do you want my camera on and me unmuted? Do you care if I have my camera off? Do I need a virtual background? Do I need to be like dressed for the meeting? Those are all things that like we didn't ever think about. You go to the office, of course you're dressed for work, right? These are the things we have to think about like in the virtual environment. One last fun thing we do is, I'm sure some of you, the virtual backgrounds. Get your, I think I saw Dennis has like the one for SEO, and it's like South County Outreach's background, like, yeah, right there. Like have people share their different backgrounds, have everyone matching. There's so many different creative things you can do. And I'll send you some Zoom activities. I think someone also said doing the scavenger hunt, that's a fun icebreaker. You have a list of, go find me a rubber band, toothpaste, a ruler, and a mouse, like click mouse. And the first person to come back wins. There's so many creative things we can do to get folks bought in and engaged at the beginning of our meeting. So I'll make sure to send that to you. To keep my promise, I do want to just wrap up. Last and final thoughts. I want you to consider, as you return back to work, we don't necessarily have time to go around and have everyone share, but after today's training session, what do you need to do now after going through this? What do you need to do over the next 2 weeks? And what do you need to do over the long term to enhance your team meetings? Let's say it again. What do you need to do now? Like, what did you learn today that, hey, I can just implement that right away? Kevin talked about maybe doing an icebreaker or a breakout or asking a question, or like Juan suggested, having online office hours. Like those are things you can just implement right away, right? What are you going to do? What can you do in 2 weeks? Maybe you have a meeting coming up in June, and you go, hey, for June, I really want to make this a little different. What could you do for that meeting? How could you shake it up? How could you be creative? And then as you think about for the long term, like I said, hybrid work's here to stay. What can you do? What can you do for the long term? What type of culture do you want to create in your team meetings, virtually and in person? And what steps do you need to take to get there? So I hope that today was a helpful framework. I know it can be kind of introductory, but I hope that it's a helpful resource for you to think about. The team management certificate covers a wide variety of topics. This is just one to help you, manage your different meetings, which is a huge part of the process. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up and put our evaluation. Remember, what gets evaluated can get improved. So I'm going to put our evaluation in the chat. Go ahead and just take a minute or two to fill that out. We use this. I look at these every other month to go, hey, what can we do to make that training better? What Zoom features can we do to make the training more engaging? A lot of the stuff we talked about today. So be as honest as you possibly can, and go ahead and take a couple minutes to do that. And then when you're done, we'll be done for today, and feel free to drop off. Our next session, if you're in the whole certificate, is going to be actually next Tuesday. So for those of you that remember, right, we were supposed to do last Tuesday, but then we postponed. Our session is normal for next week. So we will see you next Tuesday for the next module, which is on managing change. If you sign up for this individual class, so